Welcome to another exciting game analysis, and today we're going to be looking at an endgame from Pogchamps 6 quarterfinals. So if you don't want to get spoiled, click off the video, don't watch, and then come back later, right? And I'm sure the commentators went over this, but I just kind of want to go over this endgame because I think it's pretty cool. All right, spoiler in 3, 2, 1, go. Here in the white pieces, we have Sapnap, who's a Minecraft YouTuber, was part of the Dream Team. And then in black, we have WolfeyVGC, who is a professional Pokemon player and YouTuber. He's one of the best Pokemon players like ever, actually, or at least VGC, which is like the main Nintendo format. Um, he doesn't play a lot of like Pokemon Showdown singles or anything like that. He plays the main format. Anyway, so we have this king and pawn endgame, right? It's a dead heat, 3 pawns per side. Right now, this pawn right here for Wolfey is super dangerous, so Sapnap has to have his king go and stop that. It's just a pass pawn, and meanwhile, this pass pawn's already stopped, so this pawn's pretty much a goner. But Sapnap finds the best move. King to c5, the only move, and after the pawn moves up, we have a couple trades, and now we have, unfortunately for Wolfey, the game-losing mistake. Now, let me just take a pause here and say that we're not here to like flame any of these players or make fun of them. You're saying like I would have beat Wolfey or whatever. Um, they're both under a minute. They've been playing tons of games over the course of this tournament. Mental fatigue, all that kind of stuff could be setting in. We're just gonna like take a look at this endgame because king and pawn endgames are really tricky in that the slightest mistake can like change whether or not you win, lose, or draw the game. As you can see here, right? I mean, this might not seem like a crazy move or anything like that, but it's not like you blundered a queen or anything, but it just creates an awkward position for black. So as you'll see in the game, king to b5, the best move, and now king defends the pawn, but that allows white to play g5, good find. Now black has no moves, right? The uh, the pawn can't move up without getting taken, and then the king can't go here or here, so it has to vacate the defense of this pawn. And as you see here, right here, we just have a trade, and this is pretty much a guaranteed win for white, and Sapnap would go on to win the game. I told you there were spoilers. But let's go back and see the drawing idea here for Wolfey. The move I would play here, if I had black in this position, is king to d6. But a really solid move you can play in a lot of positions in this endgame is actually h6, which stops this pawn from ever moving up. So then white can't like waste a move with that pawn. And like there's like positions where you just kind of want to not make a move. So you could like move this pawn up that doesn't really matter and not like waste a move. So now you just like kind of pass the turn essentially, if that makes any sense. Okay. Oops. So I would play king to d6 here. Um, and then after something like king to b5, then you can play h6. You can also play c6 check, but you want to be careful about moving your king up too early. If black were to play something like this, again h6, and then the computer has to think for a bit, but um, we could just kind of go in this like right here, this position where there's like both players don't have a whole lot of moves, so we just kind of trade, and then these pawns are gonna get traded off. Or like if Wolfey beats Sapnap here, it's still like, well, yeah, I mean these pawns are gonna get traded off either way, so that's one way the game could end in a draw. Another way is after something like h6. After h6, black only has one drawing idea, and that's king to b4. Although it makes the most sense, any other move gets your pawn taken. Right here, pawn to c5 check doesn't look like a bad move at first, but after king to d5, like white unfortunately does not have a whole lot. You have king to b4, c6, taking away this square from the king, and now the king has no squares, and in fact, we have like a reverse position of the game that actually happened, where Wolfie pushed the pawn up, and he ended up losing the game, but in this case, it would be mirrored, where now Sapnap would be the one having to move, and the king takes there, and black is winning. So, that's the danger about that check. You just want to avoid these positions where like your king just has to vacate the defense of your pawn. Oops. So king to b4 is the move. And king to c6. Pawn to c5, the computer says is okay. King to b3, the computer says is okay. After king to b3, something like king to c5. Um, king to c3, and hopefully the music doesn't come over the mic, but my neighbors are blasting some music. And then black really can't make any progress here. So if black were to try and like waste a move with the pawn like this, white can still do this and try to do something like this. The only move, king to d4, but even then it's still like not a big deal. And in fact, this game black can actually still throw this by playing this move. And then we get this. This is a common position right here. Um, White goes here, and now a black is in Zugzwang because there's no spot you can go to protect that. So you can go here to like counterattack, but even then it doesn't matter because the pawn is now protected by the king. So you just got to be like this pattern right here with the pawns and the king's diagonal is actually like a common endgame pattern that I don't see too often in my games, but it's really important. And when you see this pattern, whoever's turn it is loses. And then obviously like you have these two, but whoever moves the pawn is going to get it taken. So it's the same as if they're not here, right? Whoever's turn it is in this position just loses. So you got to be really careful. You don't just get check happy. And then, okay, so we still have something like king to b3. And again, there's just not very many moves. King to c5, king here, and again we could have a trade, and then these pawns are falling. We've seen that position before. But you just got to be careful again. If you play king to d3 trying to defend, well, now you run into the same thing. Pawn moves up, and this is kind of another Zugzwang position that we just covered. King can't go here or here to defend the pawn, has to move away, and that's pickup. So, yeah, just thought I'd show this endgame. I don't know if there's any like hardcore like lessons we can learn, but like just knowing these Zugzwang patterns in the endgame is really huge. Obviously, with just a minute on the clock, it's really hard to think this far ahead and make these moves accurately. But I just thought I'd show this because you can see like a lot of like ways that these king and pawn endgames can just really swing wildly, as we see like wins for both sides if mistakes are made, and draws if they're perfect play. And just be careful about pushing pawns early, and be careful about positions where your opponent could put you in a Zugzwang, and suddenly your king can't defend your pawn anymore, and then your opponent just picks it up and wins the game off of that. So I hope you enjoyed this little analysis and dive into this endgame, and I'll see you in the next video.